Hi, everybody. I am so excited for you to meet one of the best real estate agents in this triangle area. This is Daphne Anderson Wall, and Daphne's been with me for 22 years. She's been my colleague. She's been my partner. She has done an amazing job. She can navigate and handle any facet of real estate, buying, selling, anything. But she has really carved out a name for herself in relocation. And she has a clientele, and that's what we all want to build, is a great clientele. And Daphne has, the great thing about Daphne is year after year, she's been a consistent high producer. And I wanted you to know her secrets, because she don't like to talk that much. So I have to get her on video and make her talk. So Daphne, welcome.
Well, thank you. And she's right. I don't like to talk a lot, but I'll be happy to tell you what I can do to help you be more successful.
Well, let's start about, did you start right at the top? Did you have a lot of assets when you came into real estate? Were you beyond rich or husband baby?
Let's put it this way. I had a really nice job. I worked for an automation company, and I did marketing and press releases and trade shows. And when I started, I knew how to get to the mall. I knew how to get to my doctor's office and my friends, and didn't know really anything. I knew that I loved real estate, and something I don't think you knew about me is back when the Century 21, the Gold Coast started.
Yeah.
I actually worked in a Century 21 office behind the desk.
Oh my goodness.
So that was, I guess, in the 70s, and I knew that I loved real estate, and but having a family and being a single parent, I felt like I couldn't do it. I was too nervous. But when my children got a little older, I decided I want to do what I've always dreamed of doing, and that was selling real estate. So I contacted 3 agents, and one told me I didn't have experience. One, I don't remember exactly what that reason was. And then I met Marti. And she and I had such similar backgrounds. And I said, I really like her. And she was willing to work with me, and which was just such a blessing, because the other ones didn't seem like they wanted me around.
Wow.
But
what a mistake they made, honey. What a mistake they made.
But, I love it. And I think you have to have a passion for something to be successful in it. Mm-hmm. I love helping people. I like for anyone that I work with to come up and hug my neck and just say thank you. I don't want to have to hide from anybody after I sell them a house. I want them to always be in touch. And I think that's going to be one of the topics that we're going to discuss, the database.
Right. Well, I want to do that, but I got to tell a story about
Okay,
Daphne.
Tell a story.
I love Daphne. Daphne came to work, and she didn't let go of her other jobs, so she was scared. It was a commission income, and the kids were they out of the house, or they in college?
They were
in the
not
house?
out of that. Well, one was not.
Yeah. So she came to work for me. She kept on that other job, which was a stress to me, because I think you either do something 100% or you don't. But she pulled it off. She made me a believer that somebody can start part-time. And I think that part-time only lasted about 6 months.
It didn't last 6 months. It lasted 3 months.
3 months. Good.
3 months.
But I want to tell you a story about her. So somebody came into town. It was a relocation that came into town. Big number at that point in time. They're going to buy a big house. And they ran her ragged. I mean, she showed every house in this town. And she's also a great agent for new construction. She knows all the builders. She knows all the sites. But this particular couple came in town, and they just ran her all over the place. And then they left town, and they didn't buy. And then they called her back and said, well, we're not even moving there. And you know what she said to me? She came in, and when she said that, it just made my heart fall, because I knew what kind of work she had just put out for that couple. And then she said, Marti, that's okay. They love me. They're going to refer people to me. I mean, it was like water rolling off a duck's back. it did not stop her stride one bit, and that's the reason this woman is such a winner in this business. So I'm proud to have you. I've never seen her have a bad day. It's that attitude, that indelible attitude that she's done. So, but you started, we had a pretty good market then, but over the years you've been so consistent. How have you been able to be consistent?
Well, I think one really important thing that every agent should have is a database. I would tell you, when I started, I had so many stacks of papers, and I would make a list, and I'd say, okay, I got to remember to call them next week. I have to remember to call them next month. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I can't really take care of everyone like I wanted to take care of. So then I discovered the database. And I said, okay, we're going to get all of my names in a database. I can put in there on a calendar. It can pop me up, notify me each time that I'm supposed to call somebody. It reminded me of appointments. And I started out just, I think I was telling some others that I started out with putting everybody I knew in there. Everybody from my doctor, my friends, people in the grocery store that I would run into. And I started adding different builders' names and agents' names. And because I think it's really important that you have a good relationship with the other agent. But I started doing that. And before you knew it, I was getting phone calls because I was calling people. I was asking them for their business. But the database to this day, let me go back. 3 years after I was with Marty, I hired an assistant. My Petra, I call her. She is fabulous. So Petra maintained my database. She would put everything in, and she would send me notifications. It's time for you to call this person. They closed 6 months ago.
Wow.
I have one that I actually got from her today that closed 5 years ago. So I keep in touch with all the names. Now there's probably 4,000 names.
Wow.
But I do keep in touch. I keep it updated, and it's a wonderful tool. Wonderful.
Well, one of the things I hear you say is that you took responsibility for building your database and for adding people to your database. And I think a lot of agents make a mistake by not taking that responsibility to build that database. And the idea of having an assistant to tell you, call them back 5 years, that's awesome. So what do you say to them? I mean,
I've kept in touch with them even during the 5 years, and honestly, most of the time they remember who I am, and in my database I put notes. I mean, they might have a dog that they love, they might have children, and I'm putting. I said, well, how are the kids now? I guess, oh my gosh, I guess they're getting big. If they were little. Just any information you can put in there that helps you remember everything about the individual.
And that is a key, folks. I actually talked to somebody recently where I recall something that we had said on our last phone call about her father being sick, and she was so glad that I had remembered that. So I think that is fantastic. I think that's fantastic. Do you send them updates on the market? I mean, how do you get around to asking them? Do you ask them directly for business?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good
like, this time of year, first of the year, I try to call, and actually we're doing that now. And I always make sure they know who Petra is too.
All right.
So Petra may call some if she's talked with them a lot during a process, and I will call them, and just say, hey, are you still, or I hope they're still in their house because I sold it to them. Hope you're still enjoying your home. Just wanted to check in with you, see how you're doing. Do you know anybody that's thinking about buying or selling? I'd really appreciate the referral. And that's what you have to do.
And that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about how you handle new clients. Say a buyer called on a property, and how much do you keep in touch with that buyer?
Oh, I'm in touch with that buyer quite often. If it's somebody that says we're just checking out, some listings, or some available homes, we aren't going to move here for 6 months. Probably weekly at first. That's just so they'll remember who I am. And then it might stretch to 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I want them to remember who I am. So I try to make an impression during those first few weeks. So I keep in touch with them, though, very often. Some I keep in touch with more than others.
Well, yeah, because they're going to buy sooner.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Daphne, give me an educated guess. How many calls do agents take, and they've got a buyer on the other end of the line, and they say, we're thinking about moving there. And how many agents do you think even make a second call to that buyer?
Not as many that should. I think, I do understand. I think it gets very discouraging for some agents because they make phone calls and maybe they get one and they're like, gosh, I worked this hard for one. But it comes around. It comes to you. That's what you have to do. You have to work hard to be successful.
You do have to work hard to be successful. But, one thing I remember after 22 years of working with you is that I don't think you've ever had a month where you just had one sale. You've always had multiple sales. And I think sometimes agents get so excited when they've got somebody that quit working every place else.
Oh, no. Oh, no. That makes you work harder.
Yeah.
Because you want more sales.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a wonderful business to be in. I love it. Again, it's not, I think so many people have this idea that, I'm just going to get into real estate. I can make my own hours. You have to get out there, and it's hard. It's hard. You have to work. It's not just going and showing a house. There's a lot more. You have to prepare for that one. You have to prepare for any other leads that you have. It's if you want to be successful, you have to put the work into it to be successful.
You do. Another little secret you told me about is what you do about the schools and your knowledge about schools.
Well, when I started in real estate, I said, I'm just not going to sit here and not know what I'm doing. I made it a point to visit schools. I made it a point to visit new neighborhoods, to get to know the on-site agents, to get to know the builders. I also wanted to know, things for families to do in the area. We have a lot of families that do move here, and, some have children, some don't have children. So, and they're always asking, well, why would I want to choose Raleigh? What is so great about Raleigh? You have to be able to answer it for them. I think at this point, if someone calls me and says, I'm looking for this and this and this, I can say, I know exactly where you need to be. And we see other areas, but we always come back to it and say, why didn't I listen to you? This is exactly where I need to be. So your knowledge is going to be key in this, and that's of everything that's important to people moving here. Schools are big.
I know you do a lot of relocation, but do you have any advice out there for first-time home buyers?
First-time home buyers, I think, just understand an investment in a property is very important. It's not going to be your last house. That is what I have run across in my 22 years.
Right.
Usually within 3 to 5 years, you're going to be moving to something else. But it's so important you're making that investment that is going to grow for you. Instead of paying rent, it's going to grow for you so you can have that money to put into something that maybe is a little bigger, a little better, more what you want. It's just the wise thing for anyone to do.
It's the beginning of financial stability, financial freedom. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they're in another profession. They were actually thinking about going into real estate, and she asked me, well, what's the worst thing about real estate? So I'm going to ask you. So what's the worst thing? We love real estate. Both of us do. Mm-hmm. But if you were really advising somebody and they said, what's the worst thing about it?
I think when you first get started, having the idea that you're going to make your own hours, that's just not the case. The case is, if you want to be successful, you got to put in the hours. And I think that was the biggest thing for me because, again, I'm very competitive. And I put in a lot of hours, a lot that I didn't know I would be putting in. Mm-hmm. But I'm rewarded.
You enjoyed it. You enjoyed every minute of it.
And so there's nothing I don't like about real estate.
I know. And those people enjoyed working with you, and they talk about you. The rave reviews that you get for our team has been consistent, and just shows me what kind of person you are. And I'm so glad you're my colleague and my friend too. So thank you for that. I don't know what else I would like to ask you except, do you have any advice for a young agent starting out?
Well, I think like I would tell anybody, contact everybody you know, start your database, knowledge. Most mm-hmm. important is the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll all come together for you.
I agree with that. The knowledge, though, some of it you pick up while you're doing it. I think when mm-hmm. agents try to know everything before they start, you got to start and then you got to learn on the run. So,
you do, but
mm-hmm.
I think there is a lot of things, just like schools. I mean, there's no way you're going to know every single school that's out there. So some of that you are going to pick up.
Right.
But I think it's good to know about some of the schools. I think it's good to know, just different things that people can do for entertainment. And again, you're not going to know every single thing. Like I told you, when I started, the mall was mine. And I will tell you one other funny thing. GPS, I didn't know anything about a GPS. I think GPS had just gotten started. So when I had a client and they would tell me which houses we were going to see, I would make my list. So I would go onto Google, I would print out the directions, and when we got in the car and they said, we decided not to see this particular house, I went, oh my heavens, what am I going to do? So we'd still ride by that house to get to the next house because I didn't know where I was going. So thank the Lord for GPS.
I know. I remember my map days too. I would draw them out on the map. I said, turn left out of here. I'd make my own GPS so I wouldn't look like I didn't know anything. Well, it's so great to have you here. You're such an inspiration to our team. You're an inspiration to me. And I know you're an inspiration to the people that have had the pleasure of working with you. I know that you make our industry look better. And so I wanted you to have a chance to meet Daphne. She's one of the best agents in this town. If you do half as good as she's done, you're going to do very well. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you.